I don't know, when I was young, for whatever reason, I just thought, I used to have like one kind of major accident a year, and I thought, there's no way I'm going to make it to be 20 years old. I'll do something and I'll be dead.
But you're
And then
always in the hospital.
and then I always broken legs and arms. I broke my back and I blown my knee out 7 times. And then so from 20 to 30, I was like, well, there's definitely no way. And that was before I even started base jumping. I was like, there's no way I'm going to make it to 30. Like, no way. And then I made it to 30 and I was like, and then at 32, I started base jumping and I was like, well, lots of people die doing this. And then now I've been 10 years in the sport. I reached 40 and I thought, ooh, I better probably start thinking about like actually making some kind of savings here, because at this point I haven't saved shit.
G'day, legends. Welcome to another episode of the INTOCHANGE Podcast. And I just want to say that I appreciate every single one of you for being here, whether it's your first time or whether you've been following us since the very beginning. And if you've been enjoying the content so far, please do us a favor and hit like, subscribe, share this with at least one of your friends. And if you're on Spotify, please give us a 5-star rating. I'd be forever grateful. Now, my next guest is an ex-pro wakeboarder, a father, a base jumper, a wingsuiter, and also a skydive tandem master. I'll give you Jeff Weatherall. So if you ever wondered what would possess someone to throw themselves off a cliff, out of a building, or out of a perfectly good aeroplane, this is the episode that you want to watch. We have an amazing chat about life and how he is now using his passion to help other people to face their fears. I thoroughly enjoyed this episode and I know you guys will too, so I'll see you over there in a second.
One thing I always said throughout my career is I just want to be a person that is like, there's no gray, there's like black or white, right?
Authentic.
Like authentic is the key, right? And it's, in a world of so much like fakeness, it's so nice to like speak with someone and they're not politically correct, or they just speaking the way they see things. It's like, it's actually pretty refreshing.
Yeah. I've usually got to look for like a little segment to put at the beginning, but I think it's comes out pretty well, bro. Jeff, my man, appreciate you for coming out, brother.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, man, my absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
As you can see, we've got the wingsuit up here behind us. Bit of an extreme sport junkie, yeah? Love the action sports.
Look, people always put me into that category of like extreme sports athlete, but I think it's just been a bunch of passions that have come together over the years, Yeah. Started with skateboarding and then into surfing, and then, I always wanted to be a pro surfer growing up.
Yeah.
Left that and started working at a ski resort in New Zealand, and snowboarding came along, and then wakeboarding, and chased that into a career. And then, when I retired from that, now into skydiving and base jumping and, teaching people and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's
just
how we know each other. Down the drop zone.
That's right. Just like fulfilling my dreams of flying and other people's as well.
Yeah, so from what I've heard with other podcasts you've spoken on, that dream for skydiving, I guess, falling through the sky as a meat missile started pretty young, yeah?
Yeah, I came across some footage of someone, and it was on TV. So it was obviously, we didn't have the internet back in the day, and growing up in New Zealand, we only had 3 channels. I saw...
Done pretty well to get skydiving or base jumping.
I know. I saw a program with a guy named Frank Gambale, and he was like kind of one of the world's first professional base jumpers, and it was like a shot of him jumping off the Empire State Building, and the footage was black and white, and it was at night, and I was just like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, in the back of my mind, it stayed with, I just said to myself, when I saw that, there was something that grabbed me, and I said, one day I'm going to do that. Like one day, I don't know how, but I'm going to be a base jumper. And that was when I was 16 years old.
Yeah.
And then I didn't even really think about it that much. I just said at that time, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And then, it took till 24 just to go and do a tandem skydive. Not because I was scared of it, or just the opportunity didn't present itself. When it finally did present itself, I took the opportunity, did a tandem, and then within a year later, I started doing my AFF and my skydiving license so I could jump solo, just like you've done.
Yeah, man, that's a very similar story for myself. I think I jumped, and then literally a year later, me and my partner at the time broke up. And I was like, I need to do something for me just to remind myself of who I am. And I was like, I'm going to go jump out of planes. That sounds like a good idea.
We find that a lot in AF. Like, especially, not so much with younger jumpers, but like guys our age, they've come through some kind of trauma. Maybe they've lost their job. Maybe they're having a bit of an identity crisis with who they are. Instead of getting the red sports car, they come and jump out of a plane. And it's a thing, and it quite often gives them a new lease on life. Like, I mean, how many new friends do you have? Like, how you've just had this whole world open up to you of like, oh man, look at these, met all these cool people doing lots of awesome stuff. And
that's the thing I love about skydiving is the community, right? Like, you got people from all walks of life. Like, you got people that are cops, nurses, doctors, dentists, whatever they do, bro. Heaps of misfits as well. And they're all just together doing the same shit, sending it as hard as they can and getting the most out of life.
And it's funny because at this point, you probably haven't really been exposed to the base jumping community, which is even smaller and tighter, but also like even more of a bigger group of misfits, like... It's funny to think that you could be standing on a cliffside with a police officer, and especially in this country, it's essentially illegal, but it doesn't mean that it's illegal in the rest of the world. And, you could have a doctor and a lawyer and a police officer and a dirtbag bum base jumper that lives in his van. And when you're all standing on the exit point, the playing field is really level.
Nothing else matters, right? Like, there in the edge.
Well, presence, right? We're in such a society at the moment where we're busy and we're bombarded with marketing and do this and be that and always striving for the next thing that we're not often present in the moment. Like, how is it now? Like, we're sitting here in front of each other. We don't have our phones turned on. It's actually like these kind of conversations often don't happen.
Right.
Because everybody's so busy chasing the carrot for the man. So,
man, I think so. Like doing these, like just having deep conversations with people, boxing and skydiving are three of the only times I ever found myself being 100% present in my life, and that's why I love doing them.
Well, you'd want to be present boxing, otherwise you're going to eat. Yeah, that's right.
Skydiving, you're going to end up on the ground. Yeah. And here, like, it's just able to actually connect and have that deep connection with people, man. I really love that.
Yeah. So, like, coming back to what we were talking about at the very start, saying, people put me in that like adrenaline junkie category, and I like take it for what it is for like your average punter to say that, but for me, when it comes to like base jumping and flying wingsuits and doing stuff like that, it actually is a lot less about that adrenaline and a lot more about the amount of like commitment and focus and level of presence that it brings you. When you're standing on the edge of a cliff in a wingsuit with a single parachute system, like you don't think about anything other than what you're doing right there. And it's like, for me, it's probably the quickest way to reach flow state. The only other time in life that I've ever felt that kind of flow state is surfing big waves, like big barreling waves, so like Pipeline in Hawaii, where like everything's on the line. It's 10 foot high, it's 3 foot deep. You got the beach right there, and it's like you have to focus, or you're going to hospital or worse. So it's it brings you back to probably a primal instinct. I think back to like way back when we were getting chased by lions and tigers, right?
In the zone,
complete. It brings you into the zone so quick. So as soon as I start. Even we do, late night missions here on the Gold Coast. We go, maybe we go enter a building to do a base jump, and you suddenly become hyper aware, about security, about getting in and out of the place sight unseen, and also about the base jump on top of it, and that makes it super fun. So much fun, but also you become really focused on what you're doing,
man.
Which is cool because your life's on the line.
Now, obviously, the base jumping happened later down the track, but you started off, I guess, your career with the action sports and surfing and wakeboarding, yeah?
Yep.
Coming from New Zealand, what was the scene like over there for wakeboarding? And obviously, I thought snowboarding would be the big thing, right?
So, I always wanted to be a pro surfer. All through my high school years, that's all I wanted to do. But I grew up in a place that wasn't really conducive to surfing. Like, it was either drive an hour and a half north or drive 45 minutes west.
Yeah.
And I'm 12, 13, 14 years. I don't have a car.
Gotta steal a
Like,
car, man.
yeah, I don't have a car. So like those weren't really options, but I did as much as I could. I was lucky to have some sponsors when I was a kid there. I did like I did all the local surf events around Auckland at the time. And I had some like little local sponsors, which was fun. I kind of got to the point where it was doing lots of surf contests and I kind of got burnt out over it a little bit as well, and ended up leaving school and going down and working at the ski resort at Mount Ruapehu. My granddad had been a ski patroller there in years past, and we'd spent a lot of time as kids going down to the ski resort and skiing and snowboarding and stuff like that just for fun.
So you started out skiing, then went to snowboarding?
Yeah. Well, it was natural progression for our parents to put us on skis. I think I started skiing at like 5 or 6 years old, but it was like, during the winter holidays, that was the thing that we went and did. And then I got on the school ski team at the time when I was about 12 or 13 years old, and went down for the like North Island champs, I think was happening. And a guy that came along, like an older senior guy, was like, "Hey, I've got this snowboard," and I'd like seen snowboarding but never had a chance. And he's like, "Oh, you want to have a go?" And he just like gave me that thing. I like, because of my I loved skateboarding and I loved surfing. It was just the natural progression. I don't think I ever skied again after that. After that event, pretty much. But I went down there, worked my way into the lift operations, and then during that first season that I was there, managed to make it into the instructor program. And during that instructor program time, they taught me how to become an instructor over that season. Then the following season, I became a full-time instructor, which was super fun. And I thought, maybe I could be a professional snowboarder. I thought, I've picked it up really quickly with my background in skateboarding and surfing. It kind of seemed like the two came together. I was loving the life on the mountain. During that summertime period just after that, my auntie and uncle were like, "Hey, you should come out on the boat wakeboarding." And I was like, nah, I don't want to. Nah, it's not a thing I want to. Like, we'd fooled around at summertime, like, scurfing behind the boat and stuff. But never, I was like, I was scared of trampolines. I was like, I can't even do a flip. I'm like, how am I going to wakeboard? Like, I'm scared. I was a pretty scared little kid.
That's what it came down to, because I've heard this a couple of times, but I never actually heard you speak about being scared of the water. Or
well, I was just scared. It was funny, but then the first flip I ever learned to do was on a snowboard, on the snow, not on a trampoline.
It's a lot more forgiving than
I know, but I think
concrete, but not as forgiving as water.
I think I was like, I was probably 17, and we were just making jumps into the powder when we had powder days, and I took all the beatings that I needed to finally get it. And at the time, I was, one of the only guys on the mountain that was able to do any kind of invert, so it kind of elevated me into this level. It was like pretty cool. Then summertime came around and wakeboarding started to come along, and I did end up going on this trip. And I just had my eyes opened to this whole world. I had no idea there was like wakeboarding magazines and videos, and there was this whole pro tour scene, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. And then, hanging out at this lake, I started to find out, nobody from New Zealand had ever been a professional wakeboarder. There were some guys going to the States. A guy named Gavin Broadbent, he's like the grandfather of wakeboarding in New Zealand, and then another guy, Glenn Fletcher and Kurt Robinson. They were kind of the first Kiwis to start going over. And then at the same time, there was probably 4 or 5 Aussies, Daniel Watkins, Brett Eisenhower, Josh Sanders, and Greg Felson. They were starting to do the thing where they'd go over to Orlando, and I had no idea about any of this stuff. So then when I started seeing these magazines and videos, I was like, oh, this is actually pretty cool. And of course, all the snowboarding that I'd been doing, all of a sudden, I'd opened up. In the first week that I was on a wakeboard, I think I learned how to do a 360 and then a backflip, and I was like, oh.
It was all transferable.
Yeah, it was totally transferable. So when I went away, I was like, okay, well, do I continue with my dream of snowboarding, or do I, there's been pro snowboarders from New Zealand. It's like, I never was thinking about, I want to do this career for money. I was just thinking, nobody's ever done this. What a challenge, right? It's kind of like, climbing Everest, or, you want to be, the mindset for me was like, I wanted to be the first to do something.
Yeah.
And at that time, I think I was probably about 18 years old, and I said, I think I want to be the first pro wakeboarder from New Zealand. And people were already telling you, people are such dream crushers, aren't they?
Oh, bro, you say something like you're crazy.
Tell them you're too old, you'll never make it, this, that. Everybody just wants to shit on your dream.
Yeah, I love that part.
Oh, man. But for me, growing up, I was like, if you told me I couldn't do something, I would be like, fuck you, that is fire for me.
Yeah,
like, I was like,
100%.
let me show you. So yeah, that was that. I just was like, ate it up. I was like, let me show you, I will do it. And
hey, let me show you how
yeah,
to do
that's
it.
right. That's right. That's what happened. I went to the New Zealand Wakeboard Nationals in 2000. I'd been to one previous in 99. Thought I was going to blow up at that one, didn't. Came to the next one and had put in a bit more time and effort and started to like use my competitive skills. And I said to myself, all right, if I make the top 3, I'll go to Orlando, which is the mecca of wakeboarding, and I'll see if I can stack up against the world's best.
Yeah.
And if I don't, I'm just going to forget it, go back to my pro snowboard dream, and maybe start going to Whistler or something like that. So there was kind of a big crux in the road. If I'd done terribly at that contest, my whole trajectory of life would be completely different, because I'd already laid down, if happens, I do this, or if this happens, I do that.
I think you're a man of your word, so you would have followed
So
that too.
yeah, so I went to that event. I won the nationals that year.
Wow.
Gave me $1,000 big check, the big like giant check. Yeah, how good is that? Giant checks are honestly the coolest thing ever.
Nothing better.
So, anyways, I got me check, $1,000. I called every single wakeboard school in Orlando. Hey, can I come and work for you as a coach? I'll work for free. I just can you give me a place to sleep and ride, basically? And everybody was like, nah, full for the summer, full for. And this was a time in the back of the wakeboard magazine. You had all these like wakeboard schools, and with like 1-800. I was just cold calling them. Hey, I just won the New Zealand national title. Like, take me on.
Yeah.
And this lady, Jennifer Leachman, she was a professional water skier at the time. And she said, can you be here next week? And I said, yep, I'll be on a plane, one-way ticket. This is when you could still buy a one-way ticket straight to the States. So it was like my first time really like out of the country and, completely away from like any no family, no friends, like
all by yourself.
just got my wakeboard and like a one-way ticket ready to go chase my dreams. And she said to me, we have a bunch of different coaches from areas around the world. They can live here for free. They can ride as much as they want when you're not working. So, outside of work hours, if we're not working, you can go ride. There's a gas card, where you go.
Yeah, sick.
I said, well, I've only got $1,000. It won't last me very long. You're going to need to pay me something. She's like, can't pay anything. And I'm like, come on, like this ain't. She's like, all right, I'll give you $50 a week. Yeah. I was like, yep, I'm in.
That'll do it.
So like 10 for $10 pizzas, like noodles, the whole lot. But it gave me the opportunity. I flew over, went and started working for her company, which is called O-Town Motorsports in Orlando. Subsequently, the name that I brought up before, Glenn Fletcher, he actually now owns that and has owned it for years, and he's still wakeboard coaching over there, which is amazing. Like I love to see that he's like carried on the passion for absolutely for so long. So anyways, went over there and just chased and that was at a time in the States where they would give a credit card to anyone. Like you didn't have to show you
with a credit card.
Oh, not one credit card. I think I had like 8 credit cards. So I went over there and I was like, I did my first season and I was like, I'm going to treat myself like I'm a sponsored athlete.
Yeah, bro.
I was like, I'm going all in on this. So I went and got these credit cards, started going to Europe, doing the European Pro Tour, started doing the US Pro Tour. And I was like, I want to go straight in the pro division. I'm not interested in going in lower. I'd rather get my ass kicked and be at the bottom of the top division than be on the top of like the pro juniors or something like that. Yeah. So I went over there and I just went so hard. My friends, lots of friends were coming over with me at the time, a few other Kiwi boys, and they just got wrapped up in the like scene with the other pros, like partying and girls and this and that. And I was just like up every morning, riding my bike, riding my wakeboard. Like my thought process was, okay, I'm going up against guys that have been riding, since they're maybe 9, 10 years old. So they've got 10 years of experience on me. All I have to do is ride twice as hard or 3 times as hard as anybody else, and I'll catch up on the experience in a shorter period of time. So I just set myself goals and just like ticked through that stuff for a long time. Got myself on the tour, got my ass kicked a bunch. Like nobody wins a contest until they lose a contest a lot, right? Like nobody steps into a boxing ring and just starts like winning right away, right? You have to get a few punches in the face and like figure out your game and stuff. So the first 3 years I did that, and I was $100,000 in debt US. My parents, like they didn't know anything about professional sport at the time, and they're going, what do you leave for 8 months a year, you've got all this debt, like what are you doing? Like this, how long do you keep, being in
Straight to like that lack of scarcity sort of mindset, right?
In the red. And that year they held the world championships in Sydney. That was in 2003, and I won my first world title then.
Sick.
Which was pretty awesome. And I think it was the first contest my parents ever had gotten to come along and watch too.
Was that your first time in Australia as well at that point?
So my parents moved when I left and went to the States. At the very same time, my parents moved to the Gold Coast.
Okay.
So
really?
Yeah, so what had happened when, like going way back, when I was about 12 years old, me and my brother, who's just 18 months younger than me, did a rugby trip. We came from New Zealand over to Sydney and then up to the Gold Coast. And my dad came on the trip as well. And we came up to the Gold Coast, and all of it, like we love surfing, obviously. We were just like, this is the coolest place ever. And it was like August or September, like winter time. And we were like, this is like hotter than summer back in New Zealand. We were like this. My dad was like, I'm going to retire there. Like we're going to move there. And his dream, it took like 8 or 10 years for them to finally make that move across. But it kind of coincided when I left and went to the US, they moved across to here. And it actually kind of worked out pretty well, because when I came back in the off season, the wakeboard scene was much larger here than it was in New Zealand. And there was actually some competitions around the country, and a magazine had started up, or 2 magazines. So it gave me a chance to get a lot more publicity at the time, because again, there was no social media during those years. So
right back to magazines.
That's right. Magazines and DVDs. So then I was just started doing back-to-back summers between here and there. And then in 2005 in Russia, I won in Moscow, Russia. I won my second world title over there. And by that point, after the first world title, I really started to solidify some sponsors. So I was actually making money. I had a boat sponsor, and then a clothing sponsor, and a board sponsor. With eventually what happened was got a pro model with board and boots and my name on it and stuff like that. All the things that I'd ever dreamed of and more. Started getting some magazine covers, and then getting DVD work. And
sorry to stop you there, but what was that feeling like, going from, I guess, having that dream and then actually actioning it and living it? What was the feeling that was coming up for you at that point, bro? It was like,
when I look back now, honestly, it's just like I set a lot of goals, and I really high goals, and I achieved all the goals that I set, and like then some. I felt like my goal level was pretty high on what I wanted to do. And I feel like when I look back now, I smashed it out of the park. I couldn't even fathom some of the opportunities and things that I've gotten to do because that were offset to that, because of those, because of just chasing the dream. So if we go back to that $100,000 worth of debt, it took me 3 years to make it to zero. And then, it was like a 5-year, it was basically like almost an apprenticeship. Within 5 years, I got past zero and actually making some money, actually in the green, making some money. You think if we talk of all the sponsors put together and then, you make some winnings on top of that, I'm probably spending 80 to 100 grand a year just to do the riding, to stay in the hotels, the contest fees, all the things,
stuff, yeah.
just to do it. So if I didn't make much more than that, it was like awesome, living the dream.
Yeah.
But I wasn't like, I spent a lot of the money
Yeah.
used just to do that. So yeah.
Man, was your mind always like that, or was that something you sort of picked up from your parents, like around the goal setting and I guess really just going after shit you wanted?
I was very lucky to grow up and like both my parents are together still. My dad's been always a very goal orientated person. Ever since we were young, it's always trying to teach us about, you are who you surround yourself with.
Right.
Like who are you surrounding yourself with? Are these people like losers, or are they people that are getting after it, because you become like those people? And then, through family, friends as well. Like I was very lucky to have some awesome mentors growing up as well.
Yeah.
I had a girlfriend from quite a young age, from about 12 till the time I left to go overseas. And her mother, Evie, was like a big mentor of mine from years. And she, they ran successful companies in New Zealand, did very well. So we were always around a lot of people that were really getting after it. And so, they were having conferences for their businesses and bits and pieces. As a young kid, you're kind of not really thinking about business and stuff like that, but you're
soaking it a little
you are soaking in like, hey, like, these people are doing very well for themselves, financially, and they're, constantly learning and constantly surrounding themselves, or constantly, reading books and stuff like that. As a little kid, you're like, oh, I don't want to read a book. I don't want to do this and that.
But then about the piano before, right?
Man, now you're like, absolutely. Like, how do you learn? You're like, I mean, we're lucky these days. We've got YouTube, so,
ChatGPT.
I was just playing with ChatGPT with my wife today.
Me too, bro.
I'm blowing my mind right now. Blowing my mind.
Do you know much about it yet?
No, I've been following it a little bit.
I'll give you a heap of prompts and stuff that'll just blow you up. Right?
Yeah.
Like it's hectic.
Yeah. There's some business things I'm like aiming towards in the future, to do with base jumping and stuff. And
Sick.
And we just like punched some prompt stuff in there today, and it was just like, well, I was like, oh my God, I couldn't have written it better myself. I was like, how does AI know this much about base jumping? It's I always think we're such a fringe sport. But it's funny with movies and social media and stuff these days, how many people actually know about base jumping. You think everybody's now seen someone flying in a squirrel suit down a mountainside.
Oh, Instagram, bro. Like it's what you see, right?
Yeah. But I don't know. That's all I see, but I'm in the bubble, right?
I guess
maybe now that you're in there, it's starting to like show you more and more and more of that through the algorithm.
Sending me videos all the time. They're like, man, how sick is this? I'm like, I saw like 3 days ago, man.
I have people send me stuff and it's like, that was like viral 3 years ago.
Yeah, dude.
It's pretty funny.
So obviously when you started base jumping, started skydiving, it wasn't such a, I guess, known about sport. It was like, really, like you said, like a fringe thing, like really on the edge, really just like gritty stuff, right?
Yeah, well, if you look at the progression for me from first learning about base jumping at 16 to doing my first tandem skydive at 24, and then doing my solo skydiving license at 25. And then I didn't do my first base jump till I was 32 years old. That's a huge time period to have like a goal in the back of your mind, or, like a goal that when it was realized to actually do my first jump, it's like, well, we don't see a lot of that kind of stuff these days, I think, with like commitment level.
Yeah, man, I was just about to touch on that.
For people. And that's honestly one reason I now love teaching people to base jump or to fly a wingsuit out of a plane skydiving, is because it takes a certain level of commitment to get there. You can't buy your way in, and you can't just you have to do the progression to get there. So when you find you get people and they come through, by the time they reach me and they're chasing, chasing learning and chasing the right people down and stuff like that, they've had to have put a lot of time and effort into that. And I love that.
Yeah, bro.
Because
and a lot of money.
Yeah.
There's that as well.
But that's a part of commitment, right?
Yeah,
everybody wants something for free, right? Like you get on our phone, oh, I want this app. Oh, is it free?
First question, right?
Yeah.
First question, we all identify with money and it has such a high value around it. If it's like more than $3, we won't buy the app.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. I guess like with a lot of things in life, the commitment means you have to put money down.
Yeah, that's right. And when you actually do commit and put something and you get value, you realize it's actually worth much more than the value of the money that you get nowadays. Anyways, I think lots of people these days have to start saying, hey, we're going to charge for this because there is a lot of value in this course or whatever the thing is. Because otherwise people just go, they don't show up or they don't commit or whatever. If there's no monetary value on it, then they don't. Yeah.
It's crazy how, I guess, I don't know if it's been a shift or where it's always been there, but like these days it feels like everything is so focused around dollars.
Yeah.
Like if you want to do anything, it's like, how much is it? That's not enough, so I won't do it. But that's too much, but I won't do it. You got to find out like how. Do you think
though that we're at that position where like we're both dads now and we're like, you're thinking a bit more financial. Like in my 20s, I was chasing being the best pro wakeboarder in the world, and I didn't give a shit about the money. There was money coming in, it was awesome, but it would come in and go out like just as quick. I wasn't thinking, I should put 10% aside for this, so I should start investing over here. Whereas now, that's actually on a forefront of my mind. I think maybe that might just be like the level or the age level that we're at where we're starting to think a bit more long term.
Like responsibility?
Oh man, adulting, I guess. I don't know. When I was young, for whatever reason, I just thought, I used to have like one kind of major accident a year, and I thought, there's no way I'm going to make it to be 20 years old. I'll do something, and I'll be dead. And then
always in the hospital.
I always broken legs and arms. I broke my back, and I've blown my knee out 7 times, and then from 20 to 30, I was like, well, there's definitely no way. And that was before I even started base jumping. I was like, there's no way I'm going to make it to 30. Like, no way. And then I made it to 30, and I was like, and then at 32, I started base jumping, and I was like, well, lots of people die doing this. And then now I've been 10 years in the sport. I reached 40, and I thought, ooh, I better probably start thinking about like actually making some kind of savings here, because at this point I haven't saved shit. So,
I'm not the only one.
Yeah, because I was like, okay, well, I didn't think I was going to make it this far, so I didn't know. I didn't really I didn't care. Yeah, I just literally just been like wide open, and now it's like, oh, I think I'm going to make it, and I'm like actually need to start thinking about these things, So yeah, it's probably a bit more forefront on our mind because of that, I reckon.
Do you find now that you've had a son? So how old's your son now? What's his name?
My son's Jax, and he is just over a year old.
Yeah. So have you found that things have changed, I guess, the way you think about things and the way that you move through the world when it comes to like your base jumping and that sort of stuff? Or is that still something that's really a big part of your life?
Man, I mean, my life these days is pretty much centered around sport-wise, around skydiving and base jumping.
Yeah.
I still actively like wakeboard and snowboard and skateboard and ride foils and heaps of surfing. And there, we live on the Gold Coast. Why wouldn't you?
Bro.
But
got it all in your backyard.
I know, but I don't think that's changed that much. Like I look at, especially base jumping, as always just a series of problems, and you're just mitigating the risk. And from 32 to probably 39, I saw enough like crazy shit. I've seen some people die. I've been involved in been close to a fatality. And
You've been close yourself?
Not personally. I've never had I touch wood, obviously. I've never had it's lucky I got this wood chair right here. No, I think I've never had any real close calls myself, but I've certainly watched a lot of people, like injure themselves. They've been through some heli rescues and stuff like that. People sticking bones left, right, and center out of their bodies and breaking themselves pretty bad. But I think from seeing that already, I was already looking at things like risk mitigation and stuff pretty heavily. So I don't think that Jack's being born has actually changed anything on that. You know, lots of people asked my wife before Jax was born, oh, is Jeff going to quit base jumping now? So and we always talked with, you know, it's obviously a hot topic at home. She's known me for a long time, and we have talked about, you know, all the possibilities and probabilities. There is a possibility that one day I could go for a jump and not come home. There is also a possibility that she could get in the car and get cleaned up by someone as well. So we've always been of the mindset that we don't cover ourselves in cotton wool, and we go after life, and we want to show our kids that you do that as well. You know, like that we, you know, we can't be, you know, can't be just like worried about what could happen. Okay, look, there's things that you can, you know, playing on a busy street, you know, like obviously there's a higher chance of you getting hit by a car. But if we take you down the road to the park, you know, it's like, oh, we're going to not let our kids skateboard, or we're not going to let our kids go in the ocean, or we'll teach them to swim, or we'll put a helmet on them, or, you know, you do as many of the things as you can. And I think these days, man, there's so, like, think about, like, I just think within the sports that I do specifically, there's so many amazing coaching programs, and there's foam pits, and there's like, you don't no longer need to get on a motorbike and learn to backflip a bike into a load of dirt mulch and, like, you know, try and nearly kill yourself, because we've made it better. We've got foam pits. We've got all these. The kids should be able to progress 100 times further than us because of the different ways that we can do things now, because of the progression. The technology from the people coming before, which is pretty cool. I think it's amazing, you know. And also when we go back to talking about base jumping and flying wingsuits and stuff like that, yes, it is a high risk sport. And yes, you know, there is a possibility that something could happen, but there also a probability that I spend a good portion of my time training and seeking out information so that I can make the best possible choices, so that when I do step up to the plate, I know that I've done everything I can to prep to this point, you know. I don't go, the weather looks pretty crap, but screw it, like, we'll just roll the dice and see what happens. No, and that's probably where I've like suddenly over the last probably like 5 years, maybe a little bit more, I've really stepped into a coaching or mentor role, especially within the base jumping. For sure. I was lucky to have guys above me that did the same for me, and I feel like it's kind of my way of giving back to the community, to be the person that I wish that I could have found back when I very first started, like a person to be able to, like, man, I had all the dumb questions, right? Like, you know, and I get them all now, and people say, oh, this is probably a dumb question. But I'm like, no, it's not a dumb question, because I would have had the same, you don't know what you don't know. So for me to be able to, I give a lot of my time to be open to the community and try and just be the best as a leader, mentor person, because we are talking about a sport that can kill you. So literally. So yeah, it's really fun to be in that position these days, and impart as much knowledge as I can. Now, if I take it back a little bit, when I retired from wakeboarding, one of the only reasons I came into skydiving was so that I could train more and be a better base jumper. So I basically had started skydiving to base jump. During that time, once I started base jumping, I actually stopped skydiving. Really? Yeah, I was like, I didn't like the rules and the restrictions and some of the people at the drop zones.
A lot of politics, eh?
Yeah, but I mean, all around the world, I've jumped at drop zones all over the place, and I was like, when I meet base jumpers, you're like out free, you know, like there's no rules. If you step up to the plate and you've done the work, then you should be there and be all good. And if you haven't, then, you know, more than likely you can put yourself in a really dangerous situation. But I like that, you make the choice. So a governing body doesn't make the choice for you, right? Yeah. When you step up, you made the choices to be there, and you have to make the right choice for you.
Yeah.
And that's what I do love about base jumping, is like going into the mountains with my friends, knowing that we've done all the right things to be there, and we have an awesome time. Whereas, you go to the drop zone, you would know right now, like, how many skydives do you have right now?
70 something.
70 something.
Very green.
So
Very green.
you're very restricted right now, right? You come along and you're like, oh, I want to do this jump. And they're like, nah, it's too windy. You're not jumping. Or they're like, no, you can't jump a wingsuit. Or no, you can't do this. Or no, you can't jump with that bigger group of people because there's all these rules. And it's always made for the lowest common denominator. Someone in the past has screwed up, and then now there's a rule for it. And that's why they make it, it takes a while to get the experience level before they kind of let you go send it as you like.
Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, right, with skydiving. Especially, there's a lot of shit, like, even base jumping, there's a lot of shit that can go wrong. But I completely get what you're saying. It's like it is restricted, especially for the first year of me trying to get my license up to like a B rating.
That's right.
Byron with the winds and shit, man. It's just like another day of sitting on the ground. Lucky the guys are pretty cool down here, I think.
Well, and that's only specifically at a coastal drop zone, because we get so much like coastal wind, and we have a small landing area that you are more restricted. But coming back to it, it's just like I stopped skydiving and just was base jumping, and then I was starting to see people die and starting to see things happen, and I started looking, okay, there's some guys in the sport that have like hundreds, if not thousands, of base jumps, and they seem to be always doing really well. And then there's other people that are getting clipped, getting hurt, getting whatever is happening to them. And I was looking and watching, and I was like, the people that continue to do the best in terms of staying in one piece and making the right choices seem to be the people that are also skydiving as much as possible. And I was like, So I was like, maybe going back to wakeboarding, how did I become one of the best wakeboarders in the world? I just went all in on it, right? So I was like, okay, well, how am I going to be good at base jumping? I was like, well, maybe I need to be flying a parachute every single day. So then I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll become an instructor. I've almost got enough. At the time, I was like, I almost have enough experience. So I came to Byron and started the process of learning and getting enough jumps. And I was lucky enough to have guys like Selwyn and other people come above me and mentor me through my the stages that I came off being a pro wakeboarder and being a rock star, and then came into this world, and I was, I will freely admit, I was probably pretty cocky and probably needed to get chopped down a couple levels, but those guys took me under their wing, and now I'm in a position where I understand, these rules have to be here because of people like me are a danger to myself when I was at that lower experience number. And now I get to jump a parachute every day. I get to take people on tandem skydives. I get to teach people to fly wingsuits. And almost most days, I'm going to hear from someone that I jump with saying, that was the coolest thing I've ever done in my life. So to be able to do a job, where you land and people will literally hug you and say, man, that's the coolest thing I've ever done, is like, it's a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, I hear that, man. One of my favorite things to actually do, and anyone that I've taken down for their first tandem with one of you guys will tell you, I almost get the same amount of excitement as they do, because you can never get that feeling back for the first skydive. It's
that's right.
It's like drugs, right? Like you spend your whole life trying to chase that first hit.
No doubt.
Everyone that I've taken that's absolutely just frothed it. Like you see the excitement, the nerves, all that sort of stuff, and I guess you get to experience that every day. You get to experience this. It's almost like a life-changing event for a lot of people. Yeah, it really is.
I tell people, look, if you're like absolutely terrified to go do a skydive, and then you come and do it, and often you realize, like, not only was that like not that bad, that was like actually life-changing for them in terms of like, they started to realize like, hey, if I can do this and overcome this fear that I had, then I should be able to do almost anything in life that is a fear for me. Because often it's a perceived fear, not an actual like like my life is in danger fear, you
I call
know?
them like rational and irrational, right?
Yep.
With the coaching I do, because you got rational fear, which is like 10,000 years ago running from a saber-toothed tiger.
Yeah.
Fight or flight kicks in.
Yeah.
Now you've got unpaid bills and like, you know, the partner shouting at you and your boss is breathing down your neck and you get the same response.
Yeah.
But then it causes this anxiety and this fear. It's like now I'm fearful of, what people might think of me, or I'm fearful that I might say the wrong thing, or I might get judged, or this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
But it still triggers the same response.
Yeah, isn't it interesting?
It's crazy, right? And then they go
Yeah.
jump out of a plane. It's like, maybe that shit's not so bad because
Yeah.
I don't think something that's going to kill me. And it didn't.
Yeah.
Those people talking shit about me aren't going to kill me. That
And
photo not getting liked on Instagram is not going to kill me. Like,
yeah.
But that's like the attachment we have to this. It's like this new fear we have, right?
Mm.
And how things have evolved.
Yeah.
And I think with that being said, like, was there ever a time for you with skydiving that fear was a big part of it? Or was it always just something that you sort of naturally felt like you could do?
But I think I always was like, oh, this is really fun.
Yeah.
Like I didn't really, not really scary on the skydiving stuff. When I got to the base jumping stuff, it was different though. When I did my very first base jump, I think there was like such a long build up and anticipation to get to that point that the very first one was awesome. And then the second and the third one, the gravity of like standing on the edge of the bridge,
Was this in America?
yeah, in American Twin Falls, was standing on the bridge. And the second and third one, I remember being like, whoa, I'm here.
Yeah.
This dream is coming to reality, to fruition. And I could actually just die. Like in the next 10 seconds, I could jump off this bridge. And if I don't do it right, I could be dead. And it was like, whoa, holy shit. And then that was like super scary for me. And then I think probably the next 45 to 50 jumps off that, like I did lots of jumps off that bridge to start. I swear, like every single time I thought I was going to die for a long time. Like it was a crazy feeling to like be like, oh, we're going to do this thing. But then like, I think I could die.
It's like a very real possibility. It's
Very-
like a very small chance. It's like a big chance.
Yeah. Well, it's like, like actually looking back, I think, and that's the cool thing about now coaching is to be able to help take people through those feelings, knowing that you can see that they've done the preparation and you can see that they're pretty much going to be fine. And then they have so much fear about it, but you can see as a coach, like this is going to be fine for them as long as they continue doing the things that we've practiced. And it's pretty cool to help them get through that fear and give them a little bit of extra confidence to know that they are doing the right thing. So yeah.
I think that's with any kind of coaching, right? Like whether it be skydiving, whether it be sport or anything like that. It's about having that person in your corner.
Yeah, that's right.
Especially if it's something like skydiving or wingsuiting or base jumping. Like you've got people that have walked that path before. Like you're not the first person to do it. And I think that really helps people to sort of take that leap over the edge.
Yeah. Yeah, we live in a lucky time right now that people are so accessible in terms of like the coaching for anything in life is accessible. If you can almost reach out to almost anyone in the world on Instagram or on Facebook or something, and quite often get some kind of response. So people that used to just be in a magazine that you could never think that you could meet, all of a sudden could be someone that you could be chatting with,
Within like 5 minutes.
which is pretty cool.
Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
I think it's pretty cool how technology has changed, not only, I guess, like, the corporate world, the business world, but also the sports world. And like you said, now you've got so much access to all these, like, guys that are base jumping, guys that are doing wingsuiting. People see this, they're like, I'm going to do that shit. Whereas for you, it was like, you saw this black and white video on TV,
that's right.
and you're like, I'm going to do that. And
Yeah.
there's probably not much exposure to that apart from that first video and then starting to see it when you were in Orlando skydiving.
Yeah. Imagine if I hadn't been watching the TV at that time and that program didn't come on at that time. It's like I would have never even seen that. Would have never even sparked my imagination to want to chase something like that. Maybe I would have seen it later, who knows. But here we are.
Yeah, here we are, 100%, brother. Now, obviously with being a father and with your busy life, you said you do a lot of stuff like, you're skateboarding, you're surfing, you're foiling, you're skydiving, you're base jumping, you're coaching. How do you fit that into, I guess, being a dad? Like, how do you find the balance there? So I know there's a lot of people that always struggle with that.
Yeah, that it is one thing that's probably the biggest thing that's happened since Jax has been born has been my time management.
Okay.
Before, I could wake up early in the morning, my wife's sleeping, I could go for a surf before work. I could go down to work. I could probably come home, and if the surf's pumping in the afternoon, probably spend 6 or 7 hours on the jet ski with the boys, towing into waves when it's big, when the cyclone's coming through or whatever. And even to this day, like, I think probably just having a partner that understands me and knows me, like she has known me for a long time, and we just kind of have a pretty good understanding that, like, sometimes when it's, weather events like massive surf, that I'm going to really want to spend time while I can there. But then the rest of the time when, like, we're in this kind of, there's like seasons, right? There's certain seasons that sometimes I don't base jump for, like if we're talking about now, like, we're 6 months through the year and I've only just done my first base jumps for the year. So it's been 6 months, probably the longest period of time that I've had off of not jumping. And it wasn't for, say, lack of trying. Like, I've been out a few nights, it's been windy and I walk away, and other reasons that, gone out with friends and haven't managed to get around the security, or but it's still an adventure. But then
James Bond shit,
that is. But I think now more than anything, my time management has to be really a bit more critical. Like, I do a lot of like rigging work, like packing reserves and stuff for people down at the drop zone. I used to do that in the afternoon, take 3 or 4 hours at a time, would just do that in the afternoon when I'm not jumping. And that didn't really matter. Quite often my wife would be at work at that period of time. But now with Jax, and she's not at work so much, and I don't want to be missing time with the family.
Of course, yeah.
So now the only good time for me to do that is super early in the morning. So if I get up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and go down to work and punch it out while everybody's still asleep, and then get my work done, then that way I can come home and still spend the afternoon. We really try and, like, every afternoon get out, catch a sunset together, whether we're going for a walk on the beach with the dog and Jax and Kayla, or, we just always try and be outside during that sunset time, catch some family time together, and then come home, have dinner together before he goes to bed, and then we can take care of those other necessities that, it's definitely, it's a juggle for both of us for sure. I can't even imagine having two. I've got a buddy of mine that's got, like, or I've got a couple of buddies that have twins, and I'm just like, how? I don't know how. I would not. It's so funny. Kayla and I used to talk before we had Jax. We were like, how good would it be to have twins? You just boom, knock it out of the park, be all done. Like, that'd be easy, Now we're like, oh my God, we would have died. Like, you wouldn't have been able to do anything.
Yeah.
You would have just been like hanging with the kids, trying to like survive life. I don't even know. Hats off to anybody that's got twins, man.
Yeah.
That's
trying to keep your kid alive, trying to keep yourself alive.
bro. And trying to like have some kind of space to maintain like your sanity.
It's funny, right? Like, you think back to when we were kids and you look at your parents and you're like, man, these guys have it together, eh? Like, they really have it together. And then, like, you realize they're just like us. They're just walking into each other looking for food. Like, just doing their best to make do, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, I think time management is probably the biggest one now. Just trying to juggle time between everybody's needs.
Yeah.
Trying to get some space in there to have some fun and let some steam off, and also do all the necessities, going to work and, spending as much time with the family as possible.
Yeah, definitely. You're pretty lucky with the work side of things, but I mean, it sort of like fills to one of your cups already, because you've got that action sport and you're also getting paid to do it, which isn't too bad. Yeah,
that's right. I am lucky, and that's by design too. 100%. Like when I got into the skydiving industry, I knew that, often the schedule is start at 8 a.m. in the morning, and you usually can be done between 12 and 2-ish kind of a thing for most days. Maybe on the weekends we run till sunset, but there's a fair chance that I get a good portion of my time to still do lots of stuff. So I knew that once we had a child that it would be pretty cool that I'd be able to be around like in the afternoons, you know.
Yeah.
I remember growing up with my parents, you know, like they would be working.
Yeah.
You know, you come home from school and they would still be working, both would be working until maybe like 5 o'clock, or, you know, one at least would maybe be home, but, you know, dad wouldn't be home till 6 o'clock kind of thing. So to be able to be at home and he's got both parents at home at the moment with a bunch of hours, freaking awesome.
Yeah.
I just like really constantly try and remind myself to be present and to be like hanging out and to be like thinking about like these moments are like they're happening once now, and like don't miss them, because everybody says like you blink and like next minute they're 5, next minute they're 10, next minute
It
like,
is 5, bro. It just
yeah,
happened
that's
overnight.
right. Yeah,
Legit, man.
yeah. So yeah, I try. So many people, you know, everybody gives you advice before you have a kid. So many people are like, man, try and be really present. And so I feel like I've done a pretty good job so far. I certainly feel like I've really tried to be involved. I still suck. I still need to be like put my phone down sometimes, man. But life was easier for sure when there wasn't social media and a phone, right? Like you're constantly connected.
Yeah.
Sometimes just like,
go and pick the phone up off the wall.
yeah,
And like dial it and shit.
yeah. Or waiting for like the dial up on the computer.
Yeah, man. Something that keeps coming up that I think I want to share, if I can, a little bit of value with my listeners around is goal setting for you. Do you have like a strategic sort of process that you've used to set goals? Or when you say like, I set a goal to be a pro wakeboarder, I set a goal to do this, was it just, man, I went out and I did what I had to do to get it? Like, was there actually a process you went through? And if not, is there now?
There absolutely has been.
Sick.
I always, maybe taking it back a little bit further. So right before I left high school, I got a chance to go on a boat trip in New Zealand by a company called the Spirit of Adventure Trust, and it's basically a replica ship of like what Captain James Cook sailed around on.
Yeah.
And basically the way this thing works is they go to all these different schools in the area and they pick one person from each of the schools. They put them all on the boat for a week and you go out and it's like team building. You're spending a time on the boat. You're learning how to sail this thing.
Yeah.
And you're with a bunch of people you've never met before.
Yeah.
So you're immediately, everybody's uncomfortable. And you're talking about
sick.
like 16-year-olds, right? Everybody's super awkward.
High school dance shit.
And then, so that on the very first day, they tell you, hey, by the end of the week, you guys, there's going to be a student day. You guys are going to fill all the roles from captain to first mate to cook to engineer. All the roles are going to be filled by you, and you guys are going to actually take over the ship, and you're going to have the ship to do with whatever you want to do for that very last day. And I was like, I want to be the captain, right? I was like, I want to be the captain. That's the big dog spot.
Yeah, bro.
All week, like the actual captain, a lot of, you know, the staff that were on board, they were like, boys are never the captain. They're like, you're too immature. It's always a girl. Like, there's no way. And I just like, in my head, I was like, nah, I want to be the captain. I want to do whatever it takes. I'm going to win the hearts and minds of the crew, you know, like whatever it was. At the end of the week, they have a vote. All the night before, they have a vote, and I ended up getting that captain spot, and we like created this amazing day that we had the next day. And for me, that was the first time in my life where visualizing and then putting something out and then following it through all the way and like really focusing on that and then like seeing it come to fruition, and it like unlocked something in my mind. And then when I pretty much immediately left school. When I came back from that, I came back and spent like 2 days at school, shook all my teachers' hands, said, thanks for coming, see you later. And, you know, like everybody was like, what the hell? Even when I came back and my parents were like, who are you? And what did you do? All of a sudden I was like, I know what I want to do with life. I'm going to, you know, I'm like, I just like was set myself on a path. And then when
one moment sort of really changed.
That changed everything. And then when I went down to the ski resort and, you know, I got a job doing the lift operations, and then someone said, oh, they have this like ski instructor induction where, you know, they have 3 part-time spots and 1 full-time spot to learn as a ski instructor or a snowboard instructor. I was like, oh, that sounds cool. I was like, I'd love to be a snowboard instructor. They do an induction, 500 people over a week, and they take 4 people.
Oh, dude.
And I was like, I want to do that.
It's going to be me.
I want to do that. I want the part-time spot so I can be training on the weekend with them. And then during the week, I worked in the lift operation so that I can still make money to pay for life. You know, and by pay for life, I mean, like, well, I think my living costs were like still probably under $200 a week at that point in time. Like living in a staff quarters, you got to, you know, anyway. So I went in through that and I got picked. You know, so I got one of the slots. And then so again, that visualization and setting my mind to a goal. And then so when the wakeboarding came along and I just was like, I'm going to be New Zealand's first, New Zealand's best, like all-time best.
Yeah.
Then again, that I just started to break things down. Okay, what's the next thing that I can do? I was very, very driven. And then coming back to what we are saying before, when people were hating, it was easy for me to just like chew that up like fuel, right? It was super easy for me I would set goals. Once I got to Orlando, I started setting goals of tricks I wanted to learn. I would be like, all right, need to do this, 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 and this. And I would just start ticking through those till I leveled myself up with the pros. And then I would reset my goal list again. And I just like was very, very, very focused during that time.
Yeah. How often would you reset your goal list? And did you actually have like a process? Was it like, you know, you'd visualize and write it down and whatnot? Or because this is the thing, like I think this is powerful to share because I've had similar experiences with goal setting. Yeah. But I mean, like it sounds like everything you sort of put your mind to has just come to fruition, man. And it's not just by some magical thing. It's
no, well, let's
right?
take like a specific example. So in 2001, coming off my very first season, hadn't turned pro yet. I came back to Australia, was here on the river in the Nerang training, and I blew my right ACL out for the first time. And I was like absolutely devastated. Like I was like, I haven't even turned pro yet. I'm going to have 6 months off. I'm going to have to get knee surgery. I'm going to have to go through all this rehab. But by that time, I already had kind of figured out that if I set my mind to something, that it would be okay. So I just went about like finding the best doctors, the best trainers that I could around available to me. It was much more difficult back then. It wasn't like you could just Google search people. Yeah, it's like, you know, your yellow pages and people like in 2001, no reviews. No.
How many wakeboarders have you worked with, mate?
You're just basically like calling people like, hey, does anybody know a good knee surgeon? Oh yeah, my buddy's a rugby player and he knows, you know, stuff like that. I did everything that I could and more, and I just asked questions of so many people, like guys that had been through it in the States and stuff like that. And then I thought, man, I'm going to be like 6 months behind everyone else. Like, how am I ever going to catch up? And then I was like, I just set myself down like a lot of visualization that year specifically. I would sit down and I would ride in my brain. I would like visualize me riding every single day, like I'm riding in a competition. Like I'd think about the way it felt to be on the dock, to put the competitor jersey on, for there to be, you know, like, you know, a lot of people there watching, the noise, the crowd, all the breakdown, all the little things, and then riding and the way it would feel and smell and all the sensations. Yeah, man. I would ride. So when I was in Orlando, I was probably riding like 8 times a day, say 40-minute sets. Yeah. So that was a lot of training because remember, I was trying to catch up 10 years to the guys that were 10 years ahead. Yeah. So then I did the same thing with my knee. I would like wake up in the morning, I would watch videos of guys that I looked up to, and then I would do that visualization and that training. And I shouldn't have been really probably back on a board till the 6-month mark, but at the probably about the 3.5, 4-month mark, I got back on a board, was back over in Orlando, Florida, did some training, and then at that World Championships that year, the World Championships were in Orlando, Florida, I made my first pro final. So I made it to the final that year, and I'd never even made a pro final, and that was coming off 4.5, 5 months of not even riding.
Yeah,
So yeah, and I rode the best I'd ever ridden at that point. So again, you can see these things that happened in my life, and I started to realize the visualization and the pattern and the goal setting makes and made a huge difference. And even to today, I try and do the same thing. I find it almost a little bit harder these days because of the distractions. Before it was me solo. I could be very selfish as an athlete, right? It was all about, for me, it was all about me, right? I was very focused on me. But now I have to also think about my family, my finances, my kid, or the other things around. So I do find it sometimes that, and I wouldn't say I've ever been diagnosed with ADD or ADHD, but if something's not totally if I'm not like really excited about something, I'll be a huge procrastinator.
Jacks everywhere.
Taxes, nah. Freaking washing the car, nah. Like just the things that aren't like, if something's really fun.
Delegate.
Oh man, you call me up and you're like, hey, the surf's good. And I'll be like, do I have anything to do? Nah.
I know the feeling,
and then
bro.
like later that night I'll be like, oh my God, I had like 50 things I needed to do today. What have I done? So yeah, I think I do best when I set goals for like week, month, year, and then also when I actually write things down the night before. If I sit down and because I'm so squirrel, shiny things over here and there. If I write things down in order of like what I need to do, what I need to accomplish to even chip away at those little things, and I just wake up in the morning and I go, I know I'm waking up at this time. I just start ticking off these things, and I'll find like I've actually achieved something. But otherwise, I freaking pick up my phone and I get distracted, and next minute I'm laying on the couch with my legs up, and my wife walks in. She's like, "What are you doing?" I don't even know what I'm doing. How long have you been there? What the hell? I don't know. How long has Jack's been asleep? Stuff like that. So the fight is real every day.
5 P's, preparation prevents piss poor performance.
So they say. I was listening to a podcast on the way up here, and I heard the guy that was talking say, he's talking about optimizing your morning. And I heard a really good one. And he goes, and I get right away started with my GST list. And I was like, GST list? He goes, the get shit done.
True, eh?
Yeah, you just like got to like just start ticking your way through that stuff. Otherwise, you get distracted. I get distracted. I know that much.
Especially if you're not in like a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like there's no one there telling you what you need to do.
No.
It's like you have to take that.
The easy bit is showing up. The easy bit is showing up to work at 7:30 and prepping a parachute and meeting someone. That's the easy stuff, but it's the background, the back end stuff day to day is definitely harder.
I know that feeling, man. So we've spoken about what you do goal setting wise. What's the goals for the next 5 to 10 years for you, Jeff?
In the last couple of years, it's been obviously to have Jacks, to the previous to that, to just get on top of finances and stuff like that. When my wife and I moved here 8 years ago, we moved here with we'd been living in LA, and we moved here with about $50,000 worth of debt. So we really started to shift our focus on the way we spend, starting to try and become debt free. We're now at that point, which is awesome. Oh man, when the day I got my last credit cards, and was just like, we chopped them up and we were just like, never again. I was like, we just, and then just starting to make like better decisions, because it's such a learning process to become like I'm sure anyone in the world would agree with me when they say like, everybody wants to be financially independent. You want to have enough money that you can wake up in the morning and do what you want to do, not what you have to do for the man. Or at least what you're passionate about, right? Like for me, it's easy to get up at any time of the night and morning to go do something that I love. Oh, the surf's pumping. I'm up at 4 a.m. I'm prepping. I've got, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Same with going for a base jump. If you know the conditions are going to be good, you're going to meet the boys. We're going to drive out to this mountain. We're going to go for this big hike. Stuff like that. It's like that stuff's super easy. But imagine being able to do that every day. Like, I love skydiving for sure. But would I go there 5 days a week if I had the choice? No, I'd probably stay at home and make my son breakfast. I would, So, but then I am also passionate about, teaching and coaching and stuff like that. Been really wanting to move back to New Zealand. Never thought I would, but want to be living in the mountains where I can fly my wingsuit every day, where I can wake up in the morning. Like I said before, time management is key for me these days. If I can live somewhere close to the mountains, like the Remarkables in Queenstown or somewhere in Wanaka, where I can get up at 4 a.m. and go for a 2-hour hike and go do a base jump with my wingsuit, come back and be back at the house before anybody's woken up and make bread. Yeah, that's right. It's like I can still fill my cup doing the thing that I'm absolutely passionate about, but then still be there for my family and be able to do all the other things that are required of me these days as a father and a husband and stuff like that. So I would like to get to New Zealand and eventually maybe start my own base jumping school where I can teach people in a more like. Here I mentor people here in Australia. It's very difficult because of the legalities. We don't have any legal objects per se that like it's in Australia, right? But in New Zealand, base jumping is just another mountain sport. It's like skiing or snowboarding or something like that. You can go in the mountains and you can jump off stuff. And nobody's looking at you like you're a criminal. And we're just like so just burdened with liability and rules and stuff here because everybody's worried about getting sued. As soon as you go to like anywhere in Europe or any Asian countries or New Zealand, like these places where you can go and you have freedom as the user of the space to use at your own risk. Like, I don't walk up next to a freaking cliff edge and if I fall off, like have someone freaking try and sue the council because there wasn't a freaking sign there. Like, use your brain. Like, do we really
down the edge, bro.
have we gotten to the point where we're so dumb as a society that we have to put up like signs saying don't take a selfie near the edge of the cliff because you might fall off?
What would that sign even look like? Like a falling person with like a phone in their hand?
They're literally in America. Like, have a Google it. There's literally signs like that.
Oh no.
It's just like blows my mind that as a society we have to be like wrap everyone because you just can't use your brain. Like, maybe if you're going to be that dumb, we don't need you. We're not running out of humans.
It's like idiocracy, right?
It's become like a documentary. It blows my mind.
What's the movie? Now doco.
So I would like to start my own business. I would like to, I never honestly thought that I would ever move back to New Zealand. It's been on the cards for the last like 5 years or so. And it's just trying to like put all the right things into place to make that, it's not like it used to be where I just like sell my dirt bike and some surfboards and pack a bag and just like leave the country, right? Like nowadays, like, okay, well, we got business here and we've got, we've got a family and we've got vehicle, all the things that come along with living an awesome lifestyle here. We have to wrap that up and figure out that move. So, but I think, my family lives here on the Gold Coast. So Gold Coast will always be home as well. So, it's quicker to go to New Zealand than it is to go to Perth. So let's be like, 3 hours is really not very far away. Someone actually just recently said to me that the governments were talking about doing away with passport control between New Zealand and Australia. So that would make no, I mean, we already come and live and work either way. It's like, why are we, we're brothers. Why are we making it so hard on each other to come back and forth?
100%. Bro.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. But I've always been a person that makes goals and then adjusts them and then kind of, relook at those, revisit those things and try and also sometimes when you get so busy with life, you kind of think, oh, I'm sucking, I'm not doing enough, or I set these expectations in my head and I feel like I'm not getting there.
Yeah, like being stagnant almost.
Yeah, but then if I go back and look at my year, say even just through my photos on my phone,
Yeah, man.
I go, shit, I've actually done quite a lot.
Yeah.
Like we've had really amazing moments, we've had cool achievements, cool times with family and with friends and stuff like that. You have to start like maybe not getting so wrapped up and always trying to move forward so fast, and just like having a bit of gratitude for, wow, we're here and we've done pretty good so far, and yeah, we are moving towards these goals, but also like how lucky are we to live in, such a beautiful place and be surrounded by cool people and stuff like that,
I mean, I think that's a big thing, like what we're speaking about already, like being present. We're always so goal driven, goal focused. We don't really enjoy the journey, and I found that play out a couple of times. Like went overseas to Europe, and I was so excited to go to this place, but when I was there, I'm like, oh, like I wasn't actually present in the moment, didn't enjoy it as much as what I thought I would,
Yeah.
But
Is that because you were thinking about the next
exactly
thing?
Right. It's like, well, this is where I'm going next, rather than actually being stuck in the moment and being present in that.
Yeah.
But something I really wanted to ask you, I don't know if you want to talk about it too much or not, but coolest shit you've jumped in Australia.
I'll absolutely talk about
Sick.
it. Cool. My favorite two jumps in Australia, Wallerman Falls, which is the tallest waterfall in Australia, is up in northern Queensland.
Yeah.
It's a 900-foot waterfall. You jump off that thing, you're like flying next to this waterfall, and then because of the turbulence from the bottom of the waterfall, you have to land. There's a big pond in the bottom. You can't just land because you like parachute's gonna be all bouncy and bumpy and stuff from the air disturbance.
Yeah.
So you actually land in the water.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's pretty cool. You land, you open a parachute, boom, you're in the water, and it's tropical North Queensland, so it's warm as.
Yeah.
But my all-time favorite jumps that I've done would have to be Jim Jim Falls, which is up in the Northern Territories area. It is freaking magical. Like I used to go do a bunch of work for my parents' company up in the Northern Territories area, and whenever I had time off, I would, I had to have like a single cab thrifty Land Cruiser and drive, 4 or 5 hours out into the bush to this place, and that's probably the only time I've spent I would spend like a week by myself out there.
Yeah.
And there's like nobody else around. You wouldn't speak to anyone. You just go wake up in the morning, go hike for a couple of hours, do a jump. There are lots of tourists come there, but on a bus.
Yeah.
So you'd go up early in the morning, maybe do a jump, you land in the bottom, and it's like on this beautiful white sand beach with this 28-degree water lagoon. You go for a swim there, and then you'd be kind of walking out the track as all the tourists start coming in, so nobody would see you, and I'd just go park off in the bush for the day and hang out, repack parachutes, sleep, and then everybody would leave in the evening, and I'd hike back up and catch a jump on sunset.
Oh man.
So kind of 2 jumps a day, and during one of the times I was out there, we had a full moon, so I'd hike through the night by myself, and there's something about being, a couple hundred miles away from the next human, knowing that you're locked into the park because they shut the gates for the park. So knowing that you're locked in, there's nobody else around, and then doing a jump under the full moon and just being alone with your thoughts by yourself. I don't think many people do that. What's the longest time you've spent by yourself? Not talk to another human, or
Go a couple of hours, eh?
Yeah, a couple of hours. There's something really interesting about going and spending a week with your thoughts alone. You really start to delve into a different level. I highly suggest it to anyone. I think pretty amazing to go somewhere and just be in nature and just be with
distractions,
no phone.
Yeah,
well, that's a cool thing. No signal.
Yeah, I love that.
It didn't even matter if I wanted to.
I love that.
I'd take that was right when Kayla and I very first started dating, and I remember saying to her, hey, I'm going to go on this base jumping trip by myself. There's no cell phone reception. I'll call you,
Just imagine what she was thinking.
I'll call you in 5 days. She's just kind of like, what?
Yeah, bro.
I was like, well, this is how it rolls. Like this.
You're setting the tone for like later down the track. This is what I do.
Yeah, exactly. And it was pretty cool, pretty crazy, like, walking through the bush and hearing the sounds of the bush at night solo and, you're like fighting your own like thoughts or demons or whatever you want to call them. Or, you hear a sound and you get the hairs stand on the back of your neck. And you're like, don't be a pussy. No, I'm good. Like, it's it's kind of next level to spend that amount of time by yourself. If I could do it again, like I would absolutely. I love it. It's awesome. Sleep on the back of the truck, just in the open air, under the sky, under the stars, man. It's freaking the best kind of disconnection. Yeah.
Before we finish up, I want to ask you, is there any advice you'd give to someone that might be struggling with, I guess, overcoming fears or leaning into discomfort? Something that you think would be like a pearl that you could give to these people?
Honestly, like most of the time, anytime you're fearful of something, once you go do it, you realize it actually wasn't that hard.
100%.
And you often realize that on the other side of that thing that you were so fearful for is actually an awesome time. Not just,
The best time.
I tell so many people when we're skydiving, I'm like, skydiving is such a metaphor for life.
Right.
You come here, you're scared, you're apprehensive, you don't know what it's going to be like. Of course you don't know what it's going to be like. It doesn't matter how much someone tries to explain what a skydive feels like until you jump out of a plane and experience that for yourself. You will not know. And then once you understand and do it, you realize, oh my gosh, this was like the coolest thing I've done.
Literally life-changing shit, hey?
And same as like, lots of people have fear of speaking in front of a huge amount of people or something like that. Once you get over the first jitters of, you get that out of the way and start moving and you start to loosen up and relax and become comfortable with the situation.
It's all up here, right?
Absolutely is all up there. Yeah. It's really amazing to...
For the audio listeners, I pointed to my head.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
The old noggin.
Yeah, I think trying to do something that scares yourself is actually really good for you too.
Yeah, man.
Because it makes you grow, right? As a person,
100%.
you get in that. Otherwise, we get so comfortable. Like, we're so comfortable, right? Like, we can go to a convenience store and buy whatever we need.
Yeah.
We live in a beautiful house, or we are somewhere, it's really not that hard for the most part. For people in Australia.
Oh man, you can literally click and collect your groceries. You don't have to go into the store anymore. I love actually going to the store and like
saying hi to people,
watching people, talking to people,
Yeah.
connecting like randoms, bro.
Yeah.
Like, but that's the society we live in. It's like everything's been made so accessible and made us lazy.
Yeah.
And so stuck in that comfort zone. And like that comfort zone is where like dreams go to die.
That's why there's been probably such a big amount of people like trying to do the ice bath thing, right?
Yeah.
It's an easy way in our life daily to get really uncomfortable, to just go and like be like, I really don't want to do this. This is going to suck. But then afterwards, every time, there's not a time that you get out afterwards and you're not like, yeah, no, that was terrible. No, you're like, I feel alive. I feel good. I'm glad I did that.
Yeah,
Man, I've been really trying lately to think about, like I said, I get distracted pretty easily with small mundane things, is to try not to put off. Like if there's something that I really don't like, I'm like, I don't want to do that because I can't be bothered, or I'll do it tomorrow. It's like, try and do that thing right now.
Like
audacious
shit you're trying to avoid, right?
Yeah, just go and do it. And then afterwards you're like, that wasn't actually that hard. Why was I putting such a barrier on my brain?
Yeah. And that's the thing, a lot of these barriers are glass ceilings, whatever you want to call them. We put them on ourselves.
They're always self-imposed.
Until we just put that one foot forward. Like, I heard this really good analogy. I've used it a couple of times on this podcast, but like, goals, doing something you don't know, doing something new. It's like driving in fog, right?
Yeah.
And when you're driving in fog, you know the destination, you know what you want to get to, but you don't know what the path looks like, but you just drive 10 meters,
Yeah.
and you drive another 10 meters, and you just keep going that little bit by bit until you eventually reach it.
Yeah.
It's like that big goal that you have, you know. It's like, I don't want to start on it. I'm going to do all the little tedious shit it's like ticking off, give me that little bit of a dopamine hit.
Yeah.
And we avoid the big thing. I find myself doing that day to day in my like tasks that I work through.
Yeah.
You know, and when I actually start to sit down and go, right, I'm going to do this one thing and don't get distracted, like it feels so much better.
Yeah, that's right.
You know?
Like the delayed gratification too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That feels so much better, doesn't it? Long term.
That's right.
Man, really appreciate you coming out. If people want to find you, Jeff, where can they find you, brother?
Instagram's probably the best place.
Yeah, just Jeff Weatherall.
Just at Jeff Weatherall.
Yeah.
Yep, super easy to find. I always try and have it pretty open, you know,
Yeah, bro.
especially with the mentoring and the coaching and stuff like that. But it's always been open for people to reach out and say hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the best spot for
Or I
sure.
can come for a jump with you down in Byron.
That's right. Come to Skydive Byron Bay. Come for a jump.
Nothing better, man. Nothing better. My
Awesome.
man, appreciate it, brother.
Thanks very much for having me.
Thank you, brother.